Aileen Wuornos. The name itself sends shivers down your spine. She lived on the fringes of society, a drifter who turned to the unthinkable. Born in 1956, her life was hardship and pain from the start. Abandoned by her mother and raised by abusive grandparents, her childhood was unstable and traumatic. By 15, she had experienced sexual assault and was cast out onto the streets. Alone and vulnerable, Aileen turned to prostitution for survival, leading her down a dark path. Her crimes, the brutal murders of 7 men, shocked the nation. This is the story of Aileen Wuornos, America's first female serial killer, a story of societal failure and human tragedy. Imagine a childhood stripped of innocence, where love and security are replaced by fear and abuse. That was Aileen's reality. Abandoned by her parents, she was left to the care of her grandparents, a volatile environment where physical and emotional abuse were commonplace. The scars of these early experiences ran deep, leaving Aileen emotionally stunted and grappling with feelings of worthlessness and rejection. She sought solace in fleeting connections, engaging in risky sexual behavior at a young age, only to be met with further exploitation and abuse. Each trauma compounded the last, creating a deeply wounded individual primed for a life on the edge. By the time Aileen reached adolescence, she had already endured more pain and hardship than most people experience in a lifetime. The world had shown her little but cruelty, and it was this distorted worldview that would tragically shape her future actions. The seeds of violence, sown in the fertile ground of her traumatic childhood, were beginning to take root. The transition from victim to perpetrator is a complex process, driven by psychological factors. In Aileen's case, her trauma and untreated mental illness created a perfect storm for violence. Experts believe Aileen suffered from borderline and antisocial personality disorders, marked by emotional instability and impulsivity. These disorders, worsened by abuse, warped her perception, making healthy relationships difficult. As Aileen drifted into society's fringes, her mental state deteriorated. She became paranoid, detached from reality, and prone to violent outbursts. The men she encountered became targets for her rage, symbolic of past abusers. Her descent was gradual, fueled by years of pain and a need for control. The highways of Florida became Aileen's hunting ground. Between 1989 and 1990, she shot and killed 7 men, all strangers, in a series of seemingly random acts of violence. Posing as a hitchhiker or a prostitute, she would lure her victims in, often claiming they had tried to assault her, before shooting them at close range and stealing their belongings. Her modus operandi, cold and calculated, sent shockwaves through the nation. The image of a female serial killer, a rarity in the annals of criminal justice, captivated the public's imagination. Aileen's crimes were not acts of passion or desperation. They were meticulously planned and executed, a testament to the chilling detachment that had taken hold of her psyche. With each victim, Aileen's grip on reality seemed to slip further. She became bolder, more reckless, her crimes escalating in their brutality. The highway, once a symbol of freedom and escape, had transformed into a macabre stage for her deadly rampage. Section 5, Behind Bars, Justice and the Search for Answers. The law finally caught up with Aileen in 1991. After a nationwide manhunt, she was apprehended and charged with the murders of 7 men. Her trial became a media circus, with cameras capturing her every move and reporters dissecting her every word. Aileen, once a ghost on the fringes of society, was now thrust into the spotlight, her life and crimes laid bare for the world to see. Despite her claims of self-defense, the evidence against Aileen was overwhelming. The jury found her guilty on all counts, and she was sentenced to death. In the confines of death row, Aileen's mental state continued to deteriorate. She became increasingly erratic, prone to outbursts and delusions. She granted interviews to journalists and filmmakers, offering conflicting accounts of her crimes, sometimes claiming self-defense, other times expressing a chilling lack of remorse. As Section 6, The Mind of a Killer, Unraveling the Enigma. Trying to understand the mind of a killer like Aileen Wuornos is a daunting task, a journey into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. Was she a victim of circumstance, driven to violence by the relentless abuse and neglect she suffered throughout her life? Or was she a cold-blooded predator, a master manipulator who used her troubled past as a shield to justify her horrific actions? The truth, as is often the case, likely lies somewhere in between. Aileen's childhood trauma undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping her worldview and contributing to her mental instability. But it's important to remember that not everyone who experiences trauma goes on to commit acts of violence. A complex interplay of factors, including genetics, personality disorders, and social influences, converged to create the perfect storm that led Aileen down the path of destruction. Section 7, Nature versus Nurture, a complex interplay. The age-old debate of nature versus nurture rages on, particularly in cases like Aileen's, where both biological and environmental factors appear to have played a significant role. Some experts point to Aileen's family history of mental illness and criminal behavior as evidence of a genetic predisposition to violence. Others argue that her upbringing, characterized by abuse, neglect, and instability, created a toxic environment that fostered her violent tendencies. It's likely that both nature and nurture contributed to Aileen's psychological makeup. Her genetic inheritance may have made her more susceptible to mental illness, while her environment provided the triggers that unleashed those tendencies. Ultimately, it's impossible to isolate a single factor that can explain the complexity of human behavior, especially in cases as extreme as Aileen's. Section 8. The system's failure, a missed opportunity for intervention. As we delve into the depths of Aileen's story, we're forced to confront uncomfortable questions about societal responsibility and the failings of the systems designed to protect vulnerable individuals. Aileen's life was a series of missed opportunities for intervention. From her chaotic upbringing to her struggles with mental illness and substance abuse, she fell through the cracks of a system ill-equipped to address her complex needs. Could early intervention have altered the course of her life? Could access to mental health services, substance abuse treatment, and stable housing have prevented her descent into violence? It's impossible to say for certain, but Aileen's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of addressing the root causes of crime and providing adequate support for those who are struggling. Section 9, Aileen's legacy, a stark reminder. Aileen Wuornos' legacy is a complicated one, a mix of horror, fascination, and a lingering sense of unease. Her crimes shocked the nation, challenging our perceptions of gender roles and forcing us to confront the reality that women are capable of violence just as men are. But beyond the sensationalism, Aileen's story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of childhood trauma, the importance of mental health awareness, and the urgent need for social reform. Her case highlights the failings of a system that often criminalizes mental illness and poverty, leaving vulnerable individuals with few options for support. Section 10, Understanding Violence, Breaking the Cycle. Aileen's case underscores the need for a more nuanced understanding of violence, one that moves beyond simplistic notions of good versus evil. Violence is rarely the result of a single factor. It's often the culmination of a complex interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors. To effectively address violence in our society, we need to move beyond punitive measures and focus on prevention and rehabilitation. This includes investing in early childhood education, providing access to mental health services, and creating a more just and equitable society that offers opportunities for all. By understanding the root causes of violence, we can work to break the cycle and create a safer world for everyone. Section 11, Conclusion, Echoes of a Troubled Soul. Aileen Wuornos' story is a tragedy on many levels. It's a story of a life marred by abuse, neglect, and mental illness, a life that ultimately spiraled into a cycle of violence and despair. While we can't condone her actions, we can try to understand the factors that contributed to them. Aileen's case challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society, about the ways in which we fail to protect the vulnerable and the consequences of that failure. Her story, though disturbing, should serve as a reminder of the importance of compassion, understanding, and a commitment to creating a world where tragedies like hers are less likely to occur. The echoes of Aileen's troubled soul continue to reverberate, urging us to listen, to learn, and to do better.